Hello and welcome to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg, and this is my buddy Scout, the foster dog who is staying with us. I don't know how long he's going to stay. I've been having terrible luck with dogs. I first tried to do this with Teddy, but Joel is in the kitchen baking just, like 10 feet away. So if you hear noise, that's Joel. And Teddy really wanted to be there. So I tried to grab Scout, but he seems to be very interested in what Joel is doing in the kitchen as well. I'll put a blooper at the end because I actually hit record just as Teddy lost his mind. So I'll put a blooper at the end for that, and we'll see how long Scout makes it. So you might notice it's dark outside. The day completely got away from me. It's been a week. So we're going to try to do this quickly, and we're going to try to do this all in one take. Acting up dogs, and all. We're going to try to do it in one take. Friday reads, wrap up the weekend reading, and all of that. Before we get into the Friday reads, just one thing that I want to try to get in. I had incredible finds at my local used bookstore today. And because they are related to my Pulitzer Project, they are not going to be included in my book haul for the month of February. First, I found a hardcover copy of The Optimist's Daughter by Eudora Welty, which is a Pulitzer Prize winner. Beautiful, beautiful copy. Thank you for my kisses. And I'm so glad to have this. I already have a Franklin Library edition of this book, and I have a paperback of it, but I wasn't going to pass up the opportunity to have one of those, and fairly cheap too. Now, Conrad Richter is also a Pulitzer Prize winner. He won for a book called The Town. I have a Franklin Library version of this, and I have this that I randomly found in my library. This is not an easy book to track down. But it is the third part in a trilogy of books that Conrad Richter wrote. And it was a progression. I believe the progression is the trees, then the fields, and then the town. So you see the trees get cut down so you can farm, and then the farming becomes a town. So I have this copy, and I randomly found The Trees. This beautiful cloth-bound cover. So yeah, now if I just need to randomly find a copy of The Fields, and I will be all set. Let's get into the actual Friday Reads portion of the video. I finished 2 books this week. I am about 30% into an audio as well, and I have not decided what my next physical book is, but let's just start running through everything. The first book that I finished this week was Four Squares by Bobby Finger. I can't remember how far along I was in my last Friday Reads, but I think I was like 25% of the way in. And I was talking about how much I loved it, and I really hoped that it didn't fall flat. It did not fall flat. I also think this is really a case of the right book coming at exactly the right time, because this is a book that is very much about memory and loss and activism and gay life and love and friendship and chosen family, and the way you, over time, you lose people and you try to find ways to keep them with you, and also just how interesting other people are and getting to know their stories and getting out and meeting other people, and the value of hearing other people's stories and seeing them for who they are. And all of those things landed very hard with me right now, as you can imagine. If you follow along, you know exactly why, especially the idea of losing someone and trying to find ways to keep them with you. So I really enjoyed this book a great deal. I will say, I think there are a couple of characters that are a little underwritten. There are a couple of things toward the end that get a little too complicated, but I am more than willing to forgive those flaws, because the points of this book that resonated with me, it just hit really hard. I am a huge fan of this book. And it really was just catharsis in book form. I got so much emotional release from this, and there are very beautiful and poignant parts of this book. I basically insisted that this should be Joel's next audiobook. So he is almost done at this point. I think he has about 2 hours left in the audio, and then he and I get to talk about it, which will be fun. So I would highly recommend this book to you, and I think we're about to lose Scout. So let me put him down and we'll keep going. So yes, I could go on, but again, Joel is also like 10 feet away from me and I don't want to give away too much. Basically, the premise of the book, if you didn't see last week, is that you have this man, Artie, and it's set in two different time periods. It starts in 1992 it starts in 1992 and then also is told in 2022. So 30 years apart. But the 1992 segment kind of moves closer to the present day. And in 1992, it's Artie's birthday. And he goes to Julius, a real bar in New York City, and meets a man who is really rude to him. And in the 2022 section, you find that he and the man who was rude to him had a relationship, and that man has died at some point in the past. And as the book teases out, the 1992 segment sort of tease out what happened and how things developed over time. And then in the present, you really get to see Artie where he is now and the loneliness he is living with. And he starts to tiptoe back out into the world and meets more people. And he had written a book. The title of the book he wrote was Four Squares, go figure. And it was not a popular book at all, but he has been working as a ghostwriter ever since. And that makes him a perfect person to sort of get at that thing I intimated it earlier, where there's a real sense of observing other people and getting to know their stories and being able to tell their stories. And I thought that was really beautiful and very beautifully told in this book, which I would highly recommend. I also thought the audio production was really great. The narrator does a lot of voices and they don't sound bad. Like sometimes if a male narrator is doing a female voice, it sounds terrible. The narrator did a really great job, I thought. So I would highly recommend Four Squares. Bobby Finger wrote a book called The Old Place. Somebody commented last week to say that they looked it up and it also has like found family themes. So it sounds right up my street. So I might have to see if I can track down a copy of that book. So that's the first book that I finished this week. The second book that I finished, it dragged out a little longer than it should have because I could have read this book in a single day. And I could have read it in 2 days. But the week got out of control. And honestly, in the early part of the week, anytime I had to devote to a book, I was listening to the audio of Four Squares. So this is Blue Light Hours by Bruna Dantas Lobato. I think I mentioned last week that I was going to start this book probably next because it was the one that's due back at the library first. And I think I mentioned that Bruna Dantas Lobato had been a finalist for a National Book Award for translated literature. I didn't realize she won. And not only did she win the National Book Award for Translated Literature, she won for a book that I read, The Words That Remain by Stênio Gardel, a Brazilian author. And that was a very good book, and I enjoyed that book. So she was the translator of that. Blue Light Hours is the story of a young Brazilian woman who comes to the United States for college. She goes to Vermont. And because she has come to Vermont, her mother is left alone in Brazil. And they only really get to talk to each other via Skype or like FaceTime. And that's sort of why Blue Light Hours. It's the times when she's back in her her dorm or apartment, and is just talking to her mother. And they have a very strong connection, but now they are separated geographically. And she's worried about her mother being lonely, so they will sometimes just like leave the Skype open and just leave it. They call it weird hours of the day and the night. And it's the story of her settling in Vermont and getting used to this new place, finding her place among the other students and feeling torn between where her mother is and the life that she is finding in Vermont, and starting to question what opportunities she might be able to have here in the United States, and whether or not she wants to go back, and what that would mean for her mother and their relationship. And it's also about the difficulties of having a long distance relationship with someone you really care about and really continuing to know them and know what's going on in your life. This is something my dearest friends and I have struggled with because my best friends I met when I was at school, and we were in New York City. I now live in Montana. two of them, well, one of them lives in New York City, another one lives on Long Island, and the other one lives in Germany. So we're in very different places. And we have struggled to keep a sense of get updates and getting to know each other, knowing what's going on in our lives over time. And we started doing something, a friend, one of us, Rachel, saw something called, somebody said he and his friends would do what they called a Wednesday waffle, where you would just send a quick video to everybody about what's been going on over the last week and give everybody an update. So we've been doing that over the past, I think we started in December, and that has been really helpful. So anyway, it's just basically, it's about that. It's about trying to, through the distance, remain in contact so you really know what's going on in the other person's life. It's a very short book. It is very readable as well. It is 174 pages, so this is definite novella territory. And it is a good book, compulsively readable. And, honestly, the hits just keep on coming in 2025 because I have not had a dud yet. And I have what is almost certain to be one of my favorite reads in 2025. And I had some of those last week. And, Blue Light Hours, I could, right now, it's not a dud. I could see it getting crowded out of the top 10, but it feels like it could end up being like honorable mentions for 2025. I did like it a great deal. So I would highly recommend this to you as well. So once I finished Four Squares, I keep wanting to call it Four Fingers because Bobby Finger is the author. So if you hear me say Four Fingers, just know that it's that. I don't know why. I don't know why this keeps happening to me. So I also mentioned that when I listened to Four Squares and loved it as much as I did, I pretty much insisted to Joel that this was going to be his next audiobook. Well, he was listening to the audio of Tartufo by Kira Jane Buxton, and he was loving this book. So we decided swap. He's listening to Four Squares, and I am now listening to Tartufo on audio. We managed to get this advanced reader's copy of the book when we were at that trade show in the end of September and the beginning of October. And it is actually released now, so you can get this in stores if you would like. And by the way, let that be my reminder to you that there will be affiliate links to all of the books that I talk about in this video down below. There will also be links to ebooks because bookshop.org has affiliate links for ebooks now, and that's a cool thing. So Joel really enjoyed this book, and I can absolutely see why. And I'm going to grab Scout because he is starting to do something that he does. It's okay, I got him. So one of Scout's things, he will kind of start to panic. And you can tell when it's starting to happen because he'll start making quiet little whimpers. So he was just starting to do that on the floor. So we're just going to keep him from spiraling and having a panic attack and keep talking about Tartufo. So Joel really loved this book, and I can absolutely see why. I am about 30% into the audio, and it's very charming. It's almost like an Italian fried green tomatoes, but that's a bit of a stretch. But that same sort of sensibility of a charming small town, everybody knows each other, lots of kind of wild and outlandish characters, very humorous. So actually, maybe I'm talking myself into it. It's not too much of a stretch to call this. It's just not Southern. I think that's the stretch that is making me think it was a bit too far to say it's a bit of an Italian fried green tomatoes, but that actually kind of fits. So we are in a tiny Italian village in Tuscany. And it is something that is happening in Italy where there are villages that are shrinking because there's not a lot of money, certainly not a lot of money to go around. And a lot of the younger population is growing up and moving away to bigger cities like Rome or Milan for opportunities so they can make money. So the population of the villages is shrinking, and that is happening to this village. And there's a new mayor, and she is struggling because now that she's taken over from the previous mayor, who was her father, she has seen the true depths of the difficulty that the town is in financially. And Alongside this, a man goes out with his dogs, one that he is training to be a truffle hunter, who's very young and enthusiastic, and one who is a seasoned professional and very accomplished and serious about her job. And they find a giant truffle, a white truffle. And chaos sort of ensues in this little village that is trying to figure out how to get tourists. And I will say, I think there are times where it is a bit overwritten, but it's just a charming, easy, breezy book. And that is exactly what the doctor ordered right now at this point in time. So I'm really enjoying the audio. And the narrator does a really great job because the text of the book kind of floats back and forth between Italian and English. And hearing her read it, it adds to the sense of charm, and she does voices for all of the characters. So this is a fun book, and I'm really enjoying it and glad that Joel read it and enjoyed it and passed it on to me. So here I am passing it on to you and saying that if you need something easy breezy, fun, charming, Italian fried green tomatoes, check out Tartufo by Kira Jane Buxton, because that's what I'm getting. I have not decided what my next physical book is going to be. It's going to be one of my 2 library books that I have left. And because I want to try to get those out of the way before I accomplish some of the other goals I had for February. And there will be a link below to the reading wrap up that Joel and I did for January, and where we talk about our January reading plans. So I'm going to try to get these out of the way. My intention was that this morning I would read a little bit of the opening of each book, and by the time I filmed this Friday Reads, I would know which book was going to be next. That did not happen. This was a very chaotic work day for me. Again, that's why it's dark outside. It's night, and poor Joel is baking in the kitchen without me. So yeah, I just haven't had a chance to do it. So the 2 contenders for my next physical book are The Hills is Lonely by Lillian Beckwith. This is a nonfiction book about her moving to the Hebrides and the people that she found. And it was written, I think, in 1950, so a long time ago. And I just think that sounds absolutely charming. So I did read the opening pages when I first got it from the library, and I remember it being really interesting, like very sort of grabbing, those opening pages. But I remember the opening paragraph of Our Spoons Came from Woolworths by Barbara Cummins also being very attention-getting. And this is a much shorter book, so it feels like the likelier candidate. I'm trying to see how many pages it is, and Scout is sniffing the pages. It's 196 pages. And I don't know, because it's so a shorter book, I might end up leaning toward this one, but there's a good chance I might end up doing The Hills is Lonely. So I am only 30% into Tartufo, so it feels a little too early to talk about what my next audiobook might be. And I think I have an idea, but I don't want to say it since I still have a ways to go in Tartufo before I get to that point. So I will leave it at that. This will be a short Friday Reads video this week. Thank you for sticking with the chaos. I'll have that blooper of Teddy trying to wriggle out of my lap in just a moment, because Joel was trying to get... Scout also doesn't like to eat his food when it's breakfast time or dinner time. So Joel was trying to sneak him food in the kitchen, and Teddy knew what was happening. So that's what it was. Anyway, we were going to leave it at that, and I will just say thank you. As always, I really appreciate your time. I will be back. Got to help manage a dog's anxiety. Until next time, happy reading. Oh, he heard that. Oh. Oh my God, and I have this on film. He does not want to be here. Should I put him down?
Oh, God, I don't know.
He's fighting me.
Well, someone's actually...
Ow! Okay, I'll keep... I need to turn the camera off, though. Oh, my God.
There's too much going on.
Oh, my God. I am having no luck with dogs tonight.